Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Wow. You know, I really enjoy broadcasting class. This is really a lot of fun. And today, I'm side by side with Patrick, our engineer. And, I get a few minutes to chat with him before the broadcast, and I just love it. I am so fortunate. I am surrounded by so many wonderful people, and I'm really blessed. This hour, I'm blessed, and you're blessed to chat with Glen Parnham, and his website is ihsite.com. We're going to be talking about hemp oil. I have some firsthand experience with hemp oil, and I'm going to share some of that experience with you during this broadcast. Welcome, Glen Parnham.
Well, thank you, brother. It's always good to be with you, Vincent.
Well, we have broadcasted together over the years, and I enjoy it. And you have been advocating a couple things that products that I'm using. And class, this is not a commercial. This is not a commercial. What I want to do is I want to share with you some alternatives to medical treatments that you may want to consider. And let me just say this. I was taken down, not out, but almost taken out, literally, by a respiratory illness. And it was brutal. And Mrs. Finelli would say, this is for 2 years. Mrs. Finelli would say to me, how you feeling? And I'd say, well, imagine this. Imagine what it would be like to feel the pain of 2 knitting needles stuck in your chest, one on each side. And with each breath, there is more pain. Every breath. And it was like that for months and months and months. Well, I started using colloidal silver inhalation. Started getting better. And Dr. Shealy recommended, massive doses of vitamin C. And that worked. So massive doses of vitamin C, colloidal silver, inhalation. And Dr. Wallach recommended, as well as Dr. Shealy, vitamin B complex. Dr. Wallach recommended lots of eggs. Dr. Shealy recommended magnesium lotion, magnesium spray. Dr. Bill Deagle, who's going to be on next hour with us, recommended the inhalation of colloidal silver. And Kurt Wilson recommended oil of oregano and a specific Indian cherry bark cough syrup. And Glen Parnham recommended hemp oil. I blended all of those recommendations together. And I got to tell you, I am grinning from ear to ear. I am doing things. I was a pretty darn spry, in other people's opinion, 60-plus-year-old. Running the farm, on the backhoe, on the tractor, baling hay, pulling hay wagons, checking the cows, banding the cows. I mean, all the things that farmers do, I was doing. Well, as I got this respiratory problem, it started taking me down to the point where I could hardly broadcast. Actually, to the point where I could not broadcast. Well, I got to tell you, as a result of all of these therapies, I've been getting better at an increasing rate. And about a week ago, maybe a little more than a week ago, I started the hemp oil therapy, which Glen Parnham recommended. And this hemp oil therapy is really simple. there is a couple-ounce bottle with a squirt top, not spray, but kind of think of it like a squirt gun on low power. And you just pump it, and you get a squirt of this hemp oil, and put it in your mouth and swish it around under your tongue for 30 seconds. I do it for about a minute. I swallow it. And I've got to tell you that the improvement in my health with the combination of all of these therapies is remarkable. And this is the most I've talked about what happened to me, because I actually believe that I am pulling out of this in a big way now. I really am. As a matter of fact, I have a farmer friend, an instructor, who needs my help with his farm. And I'm going to help him today, right after the broadcast. So when I tell you that I'm doing better, I am really, really doing better. So I want to thank you, Glen Parnham. And does what I just said, what I just divulged, pretty much for the first time on the air, as an endorsement for these therapies, does this make sense to you?
Well, of course, okay, because everything you mentioned is, are nutrients that the body needs. Of course, the super silver, and see, we're going to talk about two things today: the super silver, the plague. I mentioned it the last time I was on. I don't know, was it a week or 2 weeks ago? The plague has started in Africa. Back then, it was starting to spread. Now it's almost out of control. So here you have the Black Plague starting. It started on the island of Madagascar, which is right off the east coast of Africa. That's where all the rich and famous of Europe go. But it was spreading like wildfire. Not only the bubonic plague, but the pneumonic plague, which means lung type of thing. So what the silver does, what the nano silver particle, ours is called super silver. That's our private label. We have a 40 part per million, and we have a 200 part per million. What that does, especially if there is lung, congestion, all right, and I need to say this, even though it pains me, that I don't want to get you in trouble and I don't want to get in trouble, that the things that your listeners are going to hear today, have not been run by the FDA, and these products are not meant to prevent or treat or mitigate or cure such conditions, blah, blah, blah. I have to say that legally. That is eventually going to be challenged in court because of the CBD oil, which we'll get into that. So what the super silver does, and please, as we come into these winter months, now out here in Arizona, winter is like spring most every place else, but first of all, anybody who doesn't or who thinks about getting a flu shot, who doesn't look into it, is very ignorant. Not stupid, ignorant. The flu shot is not working this year. You stand in line and you have terrible ingredients, and it's not working. If you keep your immune system up in the super silver. So, lung conditions, can be helped dramatically by nebulizing the super silver nanoparticles into the lungs. If they just drink, like a couple of tablespoons a day, that will help keep the low-grade infections down. Here's my concern, and my concern is coming because I've been director of research for international health for almost 30 years, and one of my specialties is infectious diseases. So I'm signed up for dozens and dozens of infectious disease websites that send me emails. They're very concerned. This pneumonic and bubonic plague, and again, how hard is that for somebody to get on a plane, fly to America, and start it over here? What's also happened over there, is that in the midst of the pneumonic and bubonic plague, and the one that's the most dangerous, of course, is the pneumonic, because that can be spread by coughing, like the flu, They have had an outbreak now of what's called the Marburg virus. Marburg virus is 90% kill rate within 3 days. If you get it, you're pretty much dead. It's a like an Ebola-like where you bleed out. And it's very unusual. Even some of these websites that I get emails from are saying it's very unusual to have all of these break out at the same time. Well, unless they're man-made and are being released on purpose, that's a whole discussion. But even right now, up in Minnesota, and this is primarily because they're letting in all of the, let's say, without sounding racist, all of our visiting guests from other parts of the world, they're having a breakout of massive, dangerous, what's called multiple drug-resistant tuberculosis. Okay, multiple drug-resistant. Hardly anything touches it. And if you get tuberculosis, you've got to get the silver in the lungs. Okay, same thing with if it's asthma, which is a fungal infection of the lining of the lungs. But please, as we go into winter months, get stocked up. Okay, and this isn't about selling product. You are going to want to have powerful antimicrobials. You mentioned some of them. The oil of oregano. Okay, not everybody can use that, all right, and they have to do something to build their immune system. And if you've taken a flu shot already, your immune system is shot because it pretty much shuts it down. But, and I want to give my personal number. See, okay, what I do 8 to 10 hours a day, Vince, okay, is, and I've done this for decades, is I do free consultations. So I don't care what disease your listeners have been told that they have. I want to talk to them because nothing is incurable. They hear that a lot. I get people calling me, and the doctor says there's nothing I can do about it, and blah. That's not true. But my personal number at my research office, we're in Arizona. We're on Mountain Time now, 480-429-0021. If you get the voicemail, it just means I'm on the other line doing a consultation. But I want to talk to you. We'll get you better. Okay, I hear the music.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Glen Parnham. That number, 480-429-0021. Class, that's the same number I use to get in touch with Glen Parnham. We'll be right back. Just checking on the listen line during the commercial break. I think it's working. Class listen line, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. And so you'll be able to take us with you as you travel. Or if you've got a landline and you're working at home and you want to listen to the broadcast, 605-477-3249. And if you'd like to call in and talk with Glen Parnham, ihsite.com, ihsite.com, 866-582-9933. Glen, please continue.
Well, so I'm just asking people, we're coming into the winter months. Don't think it's going to be a winter like any other. They're already talking about, some real dangers going on. As I said, you already have a breakout in Minnesota of what they call extremely drug-resistant tuberculosis. Lots of people are dying. This is being brought in by our visitors, okay? And that it's important to understand, the God of the universe is not going to leave us defenseless against not only weapons of mass destruction created by the U.S. military and Plum Island and things like that, but also the things that just happen during the winter. So please check out the Super Silver products have medical studies on them that kills bacteria and fungus and yeast candida, virus, all sorts of things. So it's just important when you first, start to feel something coming on, don't let it get a hold, okay? And if you're already dealing with things, that's why I tell people, call me. We will go over what you're dealing with. We'll go over the drugs that you're on, and I'll help you wean off of them. You never go cold turkey off of any drugs, but drugs don't heal anything. They simply cover up the symptoms that the body is giving you, okay? So, and those other things you're taking, those are all wonderful. People have got to get their immune systems built up to be able to fight off what is, a lot of experts think this is going to be a really, really tough winter for disease states, okay, like with this flu that's going around. Out here in Arizona, we've had a couple of, senior citizen homes quarantined. They had to shut them down and not let anybody in because the flu has been spreading through them, and it's a different strain of flu, and the flu vaccine doesn't do any good against it. And you got people dying out here, so I haven't checked all over the other parts of the country, but, and flu's a virus, so it doesn't do any good to take an antibacterial. That's what's great about the silver. It's broad spectrum, bacteria, viruses, fungus, yeast, candida. But what people are going to be hearing about, if they haven't heard already, is that CBD oil, the hemp. This is grabbing headlines across the United States, in fact, across the world. There's still a lot of political nonsense going on because you're hearing the wrangling between the states and the federal government about legalizing marijuana. And there are great deceptions going on, criminal deceptions like happened 70 years ago when they made hemp illegal because some industrial barons, the robber barons, didn't want the competition of what hemp could do for, against gasoline and against clothing industry and the paper industry. It's up on YouTube. If you just type in, the American history of hemp, just don't do it before you go to bed because you're going to get angry. But here's what's happened. Even though they made hemp illegal because of the less than 1% of hemp that is marijuana, and that's what they chose to pick on 70 years ago, and it's going on right now. You have several states that have legalized. I think we're up to 20-some-odd states. But understand, when we talk about hemp oil, we are not talking about anything to do with marijuana. You do have marijuana dispensaries. You can get marijuana oil that has both the molecule THC, that's what gets you high when you smoke marijuana. But what they have found, and when I say they, there is more medical studies on this molecule called CBD, cannabidiol, from hemp. So it's legal in all 50 states. We're going to let the politicians wrangle, and the stupidity and the criminality of what they're doing against marijuana is just that. So we'll talk more when we come back.
Glen Parnham's with us.
Yeah.
Let me give you his number. 480-429-0021. ihsite.com. Glen Parnham's with us. Glen, yesterday I was a guest on a broadcast with Dr. Bill Deagle, and I recommended for homework a television series on Netflix called Between. And Between is a series, a television series that debuted 2015. And it's about this town called Pretty Lake. And it's a small town, but all of a sudden people started dying. And what really happened was people over 21 just died. They would start bleeding from the face. They'd fall over and die. There was no warning. Boom. 1 minute they're fine, next minute they're dead. And the young people are trying to figure out what's going on. And they slowly figure out that it's the people who are over 21 who are dying. And the town becomes quarantined, and the government, says that they're going to help. And what they're really doing is encircling this town to see how this disease or this plague is affecting the town, how well it's killing people. So the point of this is, class, I'm assigning this as homework today at USA Prepares, and I suggest if you have Netflix that you watch Between, Between, and they'll give you a feel for what could happen should there be an outbreak. The government would be interested in probably limiting it to certain areas, which means that you probably won't get out. And the government on this particular series was on television saying, we're going to help you. What really happened was these young people had to fend for themselves. And those who tried to escape found out that the government put a fence around the town of Pretty Lake. And then they put a minefield outside the fence. So now there's no getting out. And one guy tried to fly out with an airplane with someone who was injured to get him medical help. And it looks like a rocket took out that little airplane. So the point is, why don't you consider watching Between and see the kinds of things that can happen. Yes, it's a television series, but I think it's good food for thought. The bottom line is you're pretty much on your own. I'm pretty much on my own. So I have to take care of my health, and you have to take care of your health, and Glenn is helping us, along with Dr. Shealy and Dr. Bill Deagle and Kurt Wilson and others. Bottom line is, really, you are responsible for your health. Glenn, do you agree?
Well, absolutely, and especially with they call our system, healthcare system. We don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system that is controlled by corporate greed of the pharmaceutical cartel, and to let you know what's happening around the world, Venezuela's entire healthcare system has collapsed. There is absolutely,
yes.
I mean, it doesn't matter how sick you are, there's no beds available. And that's what happens in a socialistic, of course, country when, but look what we're doing here, the single-payer system. When we get to a full single-payer system, well, what's that, Glenn? It's called Medicare. When the government controls everything, and this was the plan from the very beginning, that they will limit the amount of medical care you'll get probably to a certain age. There's been movies about this, what they call predictive programming. It's coming. And you'll get to a certain age, and they'll say, no more operations, no more procedures, here's your pain medication, just take that and die. Well, if you want to keep your family healthy, and see, that's why I truly believe for such a time as this in the world where we have epidemics of virtually every disease, cancer is an epidemic now, and it's just spreading like crazy. Okay, all of a sudden, and I shouldn't say all of a sudden because you've had decades of research going on about CBD and hemp and this and that. See, when they made it illegal in this country in the 30s, you had nations all over the world continue research on this. All right? Over 20,000 medical studies have been researched on cannabis. And the word cannabis does not necessarily mean marijuana. That's only a small part of it. Hemp. It comes from the hemp family, the most ancient plant. In fact, there was just a 7-part series on the internet called The Sacred Plant, and they went over several. It was an hour a night. All right, and episode 1 was what it is, the revealed. Okay, how it fights disease in your body was episode 2. How does this one plant treat so many multiple diseases? We'll talk about that. Episode 4, and see, they had the greatest scientific minds on this docuseries. Okay, they had doctors, they had research scientists, they had patients. Episode 4 was about treating cancer. Okay, so here's what they have found. And again, I'm not saying that this product will cure your disease, but and I have to say that because the FDA, all right, who's nothing more than the attack dog for the pharmaceutical cartel, is on the warpath. They have a right to do that to a certain extent, because let me warn people, if you go on an internet search engine and just type in CBD oil companies, you're going to get hundreds of companies selling what they call CBD oil. A lot of them have been tested. They're dangerous because you got, in some instances, because it's the wild, wild west out there, you've got, like 2 stoners in a garage up in Colorado pouring solvents over a bucket full of marijuana leaves, and what comes out of that, they're calling CBD oil, and they bottle it. That's not. You've got to be careful. Thank God for this gentleman called Mike Adams. Okay, many of your listeners might know the name. He's the health ranger, but he also owns a laboratory, and the second CBD oil that we now carry is independently certified, and he's going to offer that to every company starting like January. You do not want to use a CBD oil that has not been independently certified that it's organic and that it doesn't have solvents in it and toxic heavy metals, because and if you go to the website, getthebestcbdoil.com, all right, I have articles up there, I have some videos, all right, I'm going to be adding a lot more because we added a second company with the CBD, the one that comes from Mike Adams. organically grown in Colorado, because the things I've been hearing when they test these other CBD oils, very scary, because it's just, people out there. But the reason so many people are jumping into it, okay, one of the links up on getthebestcbdoil.com, comes from this organization, okay, called the CBD Project, okay, and what they have there, they have the list of diseases that it's been shown to help with, and it reads like the who's who of everything plaguing mankind. I mean, acne, ADD, addiction, AIDS, ALS, Alzheimer's, anorexia, antibiotic resistance, anxiety, depression, arterial sclerosis, arthritis, anything to do with a autoimmune disorder, all right, and digestive issues, multiple sclerosis, mood disorders, migraines. I mean, the list goes on and on. They have not found a disease that pure CBD oil doesn't help with. Now, this is what's making the FDA crazy. They have sent out 4 warning letters to 4 different companies in the last month because the companies weren't making the claims. They had people send in testimonials. I had cancer, and I had gone the traditional route, and it didn't work. And I went on CBD oil, and it shrunk my tumor, and I'm now cancer-free. Well, we have to be smart about this. You can't make those claims, even though they're true. That's why I read that at the beginning of your show, this disclaimer, and I pray for the day that gets challenged in federal court, because are CBD oils curing disease? Yeah, it's not me saying it. It's the research science, okay, and on and on the website getthebestcbdoil.com. When you click on any of these diseases, I'll just choose heart disease. Okay, when you click on it, a list of some of the research papers that have been done, and I'm talking full-blown medical studies, okay, on CBD, cannabidiol, okay, come up, and so it's something you don't have to take this, in faith. All right, the CBD oil that we carry now, and we have 2 kinds, but the one that Mike Adams recommends, I believe, is going to become our bestseller, because you have 3 different strengths. When people call me at 480-429-0021, and we talk about any disease state that they've been told they have, well, if somebody calls me with cancer, okay, I'm going to recommend 1,000 milligrams, but if somebody just calls me with a little bit of anxiety and depression, then they can take less of it. The point being, this is going to change everything we know about medical science, and it's got the pharmaceutical industries running, because they're trying to create a synthetic molecule of not only marijuana, okay, but of CBD, because they just want market share, and they don't want a plant to be able to cure all of these diseases, because diabetes, chronic pain, it's wonderful for pain. It's going to help end this opioid epidemic going on, because it's wonderful for helping people wean back off opioid addiction. For brains, it's not only brain protective, it's brain regenerative. The NFL is starting to use it now to help against the traumatic brain injuries that are being gotten by their football players. All right, and osteoporosis, Parkinson's, rheumatism, schizophrenia, skin conditions, sleep disorders. I mean, it goes on, and they have tests that they've run for decades with ongoing tests right now. So check it out, okay, at getthebestcbdoil.com, and then call me. We'll have a consultation, and we'll get you feeling better. I promise. Now, hear the music.
Yeah. We're going into a commercial break, and class will be right back. Glen Parnham's with us. Glen, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
At the opening of this broadcast hour, I mentioned my experience with colloidal silver, hemp oil, and so forth.
Right.
And I talked about the positive results I'm seeing. Are others calling you after they have followed your recommendations and said anything similar?
Oh, absolutely, all the time, every day. Okay, calls from people who before, were kind of losing hope. All right, and see, I don't want people to think of it. I really don't like doctors. I don't like them. The drug part of it, they're phenomenal for trauma. I mean, if you have a heart attack or a stroke or a broken bone sticking out of your leg, you're not going to go to your chiropractor. You're going to go to a trauma center. But listening to a doctor, a classically trained doctor whose only job is to push drugs to cover up symptoms, and people are losing hope. I talk to people who've had these diseases, and they're progressing and progressing and progressing. Nothing the doctor does helps, and then, they just kind of give up hope. That's why I want people to call me. You don't have to give up hope. And now, I truly believe that CBD oil, and a lot of people believe the same way. That's why they did this 7-part series called The Sacred Plant. And they're talking about cannabis, okay, and the CBD and the hemp, okay, because the history of it goes back 10,000 years. And again, they can't find a disease that it doesn't help with. And that's why, it's not, that's why I keep mentioning the FDA, because the FDA doesn't want people to have access to a plant that cures major diseases out there, because that will, there's already people shunning the pharmaceutical drugs. But yeah, I hear every day, Vince, from, people who had infections, okay, that just weren't going away. They've been trying to treat asthma for years. And I said, well, if you have a nebulizer, put the super silver in it, start nebulizing into the lungs, and they just cough up black crap. And, in a certain period of time, everybody's different, but they can breathe again because the fungus is killed in the lungs. And the antibiotics are not working very well anymore, okay? And the biggest thing is they got to build their immune system up. And this CBD oil, they're finding it builds the immune system so strong. See, they found a whole system in our body called an endocannabinoid system. They found this 30 years ago. They found more receptor sites in the human body for CBD than they did for hormone. And they didn't know what to think of it 30 years ago. Now they know. The God of the universe, the Creator God, put that system in our body because at one time during our ancient past, we ate foods rich in CBD. It had to have something to do with hemp, okay? And now they're calling most of these diseases a CBD deficiency syndrome. Since those receptor sites are empty, because where do we get CBD? Just now being introduced back into the marketplace, and some of the companies are good, most of them are lousy. That's all going to change after the first of the year when they have to get independently certified. But when you fill back up those receptors, then it seems that the body gets rid of disease, and what brings on the disease state is the lack of CBDs in the receptor. That's the only way these scientists, and I've listened to the top scientists in the industry, and the doctors talk about this. They don't understand exactly what is happening, but when you have people who have tried everything, like for cancer, okay, and they're dying, and nothing, the chemo and radiation isn't working, and they start doing CBD oil, or if they live in a state where they have legal marijuana, they start doing a combination of the two, okay, and their cancer just goes away. Thousands of people like that. That's why the God of the universe is not going to leave us defenseless against everything that is being thrown at us, okay, and for such a time as this, okay, this product shows back up with more research than any other product in the world. So, and just call me, 480-429-0021. You can go check out some of the science at, getthebestcbdoil.com.
Glenn, thanks so much. In class, if you call Glenn, you may have to do what I do, leave a message.
Yep,
because I know he's really busy.
Okay. Yeah, and say hi to Dr. Bill Deagle. He's one of my heroes.
Yeah,
okay?
He's on next.
I know.
Yep, Dr. Bill Deagle's on next. Glenn, thank you so much.
You take care, brother. Bye-bye.
You too. Everyone all set, cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. We're delighted you're with us in class today. You know, for those of you who are new to the class, there are over 250 of us here at USA Prepares, experts in various areas. Some of us are dentists, medical doctors, engineers, researchers, CEOs, broadcasters, editors, researchers, authors, physicists, programmers, farmers, inventors. And none of us takes direction very well. And I don't think any of us can hold down a job. I'm delighted to introduce to you your newest senior USA Prepares instructor, Dr. Bill Deagle. He broadcasts on GCN right here, and he's got some great medical advice and experience. He has been helping me with my medical challenges. I've been following his protocols, and they're working. Thank you, Dr. Bill Deagle.
You're welcome, Vince. I really hope we can help people. We don't just do medical, though. And the website, people should understand, is NutriMedical, N-U-T-R-I, medical.com. The news website is called Clay and Iron, CLAYANDIRON.com. And I have my own media site where I do podcasting and rebroadcast my Genesis shows and shows I do on other networks. What people should understand is that we cover on the 3-hour shows, which are 2 to 5 Central Time, medical issues, functional wellness, anti-aging, but we also cover geopolitical issues, preparedness, and in my background, not only as a medical doctor, but I worked for a number of years with the government on above top secret on things such as U.S. Space Command, Missile Defense Command, and classified projects, as well as Delta Force and Special Ops, and worked with Operation Top Off and Dark Winter and other events with the CDC and the FBI. So I'm very much into preparedness. As an emergency trauma burn doctor with the background in everything from surgery to intensive care unit, I can tell you the population is not prepared. And you made an interesting comment about one of your preparedness guys that was closed the door and said, I can't get my relatives to start preparing. He said, so I'm really concerned that I might have to shoot my in-laws. And I don't think people understand that preparedness is, you don't have to make this massive job where you have to do it all today, but you've got to do something every week. And whether it's storing 5-gallon jugs of water or having a dehydrator or getting out of the big cities, people have to start doing step by step because they have to ask the serious question, do they want to survive? Not only do they want to survive catastrophe, do they want to survive, for example, the corrupt healthcare system? I'm a medical doctor that's done pretty well every kind of surgery, including except open heart and brain surgery, orthopedic, plastic, general surgery, and trauma and burn unit, etc. And I can tell you that there's some great things the medical profession does that are really unique compared to any other health professional, but there's some things that are really out of control. The out of control overuse of drugs, the out of control inappropriate use of surgery. That's why when the doctors go on strike, the rate of death in the nation drops. And we provide custom nutraceutical protocols to people. All they have to do is email me, Dr. Bill Deagle, CRBill, DEAGLE, @hotmail.com, and I don't charge. It only becomes a charge when I actually have to do a consultation. I have Citrix share file, looking at medical records, MRI scans, and I do everything. I do genetic testing, organic acid testing, metabolites, and I could send the kits anywhere in the world. I do remote quantum testing through the technology used by the Russian Academy of Sciences, called the Metapathia Hunter and QRMA machine. So we have sites in New York, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Southern California. We're now building one in Northern California. We can go to one of our sites. We can do a scan of your body with simple hydrophones on your head and tell a lot of things that are going on with you. I can validate with tests that I can tell you just to do with your local doctor, covered by your insurance. 60 to 70% of the time, they're just basically sloppy doctors. And I can tell you I'm a medical legal expert in every specialty. So the problem I see is the medical profession are sloppy, just like our government. That's why I get a kick out of people that support, say, the rhino Republicans or the very dangerous demon rats I call Democrats, because the government doesn't take care of you. They harm you, like, for example, during Katrina. They actually cut off the communication lines that the people had already set up. They actually interfere with boats trying to bring emergency supplies. And America has been hit by a number of disasters in 2017, from the superstorms that should not have struck America, We have 5 nations that have land modification technology. And we should have not had those super fires up in Northern California. Those had a lot of markings that they made set by an arsonist, maybe using advanced technology such as HARP or some other HARP-like technology, because it's not normal. We know there's a blocking high in the North Pacific Ocean to block the radiation from Fukushima. I just put up another YouTube. If you go to our website, NutriMedical, and you go to the link for our media site, you'll see it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, Spreaker, etc. And that is a 2-part video I repeated after more than 6 years now. All the evidence about Fukushima Daiichi, including MOX Reactor 3, which is a nuclear detonator or a weaponized detonator for nuclear warheads, reactor site. People don't understand these things, but what you don't know can not only hurt you but kill you. And that's why I try to help people in their medical issues. And because the ministry, 95% of the people, if you email me, it's totally free. It only becomes a consult if I have to give you tests, review medical records, and so on. So it's a ministry. You can email me, and if you bought even one product, I will call you back anywhere in the world, even by Skype. Pretty cool, eh?
Pretty cool. And a class, no kidding. Dr. Bill Deagle.
And the thing is that there's a lot of barriers. I want to reinvent the healthcare system. I sent my video back in the spring to the head of HHS, who's now gone, and Dr. Price, and to Bart Goldman and Dr. Ron Claps, who actually helped me rewrite this and put it in a video to give directly to the president. But the problem is we have a very bad Congress and Senate that basically don't want, they're never Trumpers. Some of them are obvious and some are pretty sneaky about it. I just had a discussion with a relative who thought that it's Trump's fault that the tax bill is coming out as really bad. Well, if you hit the upper middle class, a lot of them are Trump supporters, you're going to lose support. This idea of revenue neutral tax bill is insanity. You have to grow the income like any business. Anybody in any business knows if you grow your business, the expenses don't matter. If you grow your business 100%, then your expenses become 100% less. They get cut in half. That's the way you build an economy. You don't do it by having a revenue neutral tax bill that hurts the people who have the money that actually can set up new business. So it's the same thing with your prepping. If you're taking 8 or 10 drugs, and you could take maybe 1 or 2 drugs or no drugs and take nutraceuticals and start getting your health back, and even taking things like heterochromic peptides to regenerate your organs, and hyperbaric oxygen and morphogenic field therapy, which I pioneered and have the technology to do so on you now. Why would you not do it? Well, it's the same thing as prepping. So I tell people to financially prep with carrot bars. I tell them to physically start prepping by listening to your show. And we started prepper school yesterday, and I'm starting to get emails already from people that want us to do a little regular show, say weekly, and of course it's just on your program, and then we're going to just get them tasks. You've done this for years in your meetups, but I want to break the tasks down so small that even the most, they can't face themselves, that they really don't want to survive if they don't even do the littlest, tiniest task. If they have to break it down so small, nobody can complain, well, that's too much, Dr. Deagle, or it's too expensive, or my wife or my neighbor wouldn't like that, What do you respond when you hear those kind of comments from people?
Well, I've seen for years that people say, yeah, I'm in, I'm all in, yeah, I'm going to do it, I'm going to help. And then what happens is that they fall short. They fall short when it comes down to actually helping their friends, family, and relatives. And so I had a question for you. Did I hear you say that as a result of the broadcast that we did yesterday afternoon on your show at 4 o'clock, that you have listeners who want us to do this on a weekly basis? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, and I'm talking about coming on my show and doing it weekly. The reason is they want to be taught the various basic steps. Mm-hmm. And I told them, I said, we're not going to charge for it. Mm-hmm. If you get on our email list, we'll just say, here's a task for this week. We're not going to get anybody with a giant book and then they don't read it. Or here's what I find, psychologically, people do something. I call them keyboard survivalists. So that they do something, but it's not concrete. There's no concrete change to their behavior. They haven't left the big cities. They don't have here's my example. I did this last year with Dave Mitchell, who's a realtor who got our home here in Southern California. He's a brilliant guy. He's kind of soft-spoken, so you have to kind of push him a bit. But he's brilliant, and he helps people not only here in America but around the world to set up survival sites. So he managed to track down 3 major properties here in California that are ideal, okay, not downwind of a nuclear reactor, not near a fault zone. You can grow food there. It's got water and wells and everything. And unfortunately, instead of like 100 families buying, let's say, for $2,000 property, one guy who lives in the firm got so motivated, but he's a millionaire, he bought all 3 properties. I don't want that. I think, honestly, if you're wealthy enough to go off and sequester yourself in the mountains or someplace where you think you're going to survive, you're just changing the death certificate date. You have to have a village of people with the combined skill sets to survive, and you have to choose wisely where you're going to try to survive. You have to be away from the blast zone, away from fault zones, away from the danger of major forest fires, away from tsunami zones, because tsunamis are going to occur. We're now dealing with extreme weather because the northern latitudes are being pushed down because we're in the midst of a modern mini ice age, which happens. This is geological fact. Every 360 years, the last time it happened in London, they had 4 foot of ice on the Thames River in the midwinter. The fact is, people need to understand that's why Greenland had to be evacuated 360 years ago by the Danish. So these facts are going to change things on the ground. And right now we have a population that, unfortunately, if they think if they do it in cyberspace, like on their keyboard or on their iPhone, it's done in reality, and that's not true, is it?
Right. And, I was just thinking, I was drawing a map of, as you're saying this, of our farm. And I've got a comment to make when we come back, just about, think you can go it alone? I've got some news for you, just as Dr. Bill Deagle said. I'll share that with you when we come right back.
Exactly. You can't go it alone. Don't try either.
Dr. Bill Deagle's with us. And Dr. Deagle, I was thinking as you were talking, as we were going into the break last segment, about going it alone. And it can't be done. And let me just give you an example. I live on a farm, and the farm that we have is probably about average size for Missouri. Maybe it's a little bit smaller than the average size, 241 acres. That's roughly just a little less than 4/10 of a square mile. And I was thinking about the perimeter fences. So we have 2 3/4 miles of barbed wire fence around our farm to keep the cows at home. 2 3/4 miles. Now, that's just perimeter fence. Now, if you want to add to that the internal fencing that partitions off fields into paddocks, you can multiply that by a couple times, maybe 3 times. So maybe a little less than 10 miles of total fence. All right, now, here's the reason I'm saying that. I'm going to tell you some of the lengths of the perimeter fence. This is just along the exterior borders of our farm. One is a mile, another side is a half a mile, another side is another half a mile, then a quarter of a mile, then a half a mile, then a quarter of a mile. That's 2 3/4 miles of fencing. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is, let's say we're going it alone, right? Let's say it's just me or you or one of our class members today. Which one of those sides of the fence are you going to watch? You're going to watch the 1 mile? Well, you can't. You can't, because you can't see that far because it's rolling hills. So you can't see the other end of the property. Okay, so let's say you just take a half a mile section. Well, you can't watch that either because it's through the woods. So let's take the smallest side, a quarter of a mile. Well, okay, but you really can't see through the woods there either. What I'm saying is, if all you wanted to do, forget food, clothing, shelter, water, forget all that. Just your job is to just watch that one section. You can't even do that. So what I'm saying is, it's going to take several people. Well, it's going to take more than that, because when you put it all together, you're going to need 5 people minimum to produce the food. You're going to have 5 people per security shift minimum to kind of patrol the area. That's the perimeter. Now, you're going to need a few more to patrol, the living section. It's a job that cannot be done by one family. So if a person thinks, you know what, I'll just get a timeshare and a bunker, a missile silo, I'll just spend $500,000 and buy my piece of that missile silo, and somebody's going to have it all prepared for us, and all we have to do is show up. Just think about how hard is it going to be just to show up. Most people don't have enough fuel in their vehicles to get through the week, let alone go on an excursion with the family. How about this? How about, let's say you ring the alarm and say, okay, everybody, we're leaving right now. How long will that take? How long will that take to get in the vehicle?
You're a comedian too, aren't you? I call it survival comedian. How's that?
Well, it's true. I mean,
do it or die comedian. How's that?
How about this? So, all we want to do is go to the mall on the weekend. Let's say Saturday. I don't go to the mall, but let's say that's our plan. And we have a small child. And we say, okay, let's get ready to go. I'll bet you can't get in that station wagon, that van, that SUV, or that automobile, or that truck in less than a half an hour. I don't believe it can be done.
Right.
Because everybody has to go to the bathroom. And then as soon as the last person goes, the first person has to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's a non-stop cycle. Well, what I'm saying is, if you think that you can do this by yourself, you can't. And if you think you can do it, if you think you can have some seeds in a packet and then start growing your garden if things get bad, when things get bad, it can't be done. I don't know anyone, not a single person, who has tried to grow a garden who was successful the first time. I don't know one person. Not one.
But here's the point. Even if you're successful at a lot of these skills, let's say you've got your ex-military and you can grow a garden and you've got, let's say you're an IQ 200 billionaire and you're 6 terms of special forces, you're top shape. Even if you can do that, you couldn't watch your perimeter, you can't protect your family, and if you go to an underground bunker, the rate of suicide within a month is 38%. If you're stuck underground and the whole world is just for a nuclear blast. So you have to get yourself into the community away from a large city, and you have to collectively work. And it's not dependent on money. It's dependent on combined skill sets.
Dr. Bill Deagle's with us, and we're talking about preparedness today. And I want to share a little bit of a story with you, Dr. Deagle. In class, one of the things that we do here at USA Prepares is we tell stories. And it's a teaching method that we use to share with you experiences that we have and what we've learned from them, so that maybe you could learn, from them as well, and take them to the next level in your lives.
Right.
Well, during the broadcast, Mrs. Finelli ran into the studio. That's not something she normally does. She runs the farm when I'm on the air. So she ran in and she indicated she needed to talk to me. So I potted down my microphone and she said, "There's a burning smell by the inverter and the charge controllers." I said, "Okay, I'll be there in 2 minutes." So we went into a break and I ran over to where the solar charge controllers are and the battery bank and the inverter and the power distribution panel. And class, what we did yesterday was we decided that let's go off grid. Let's just throw the breaker and let's go off grid. Let's see what how it works, which is what we're telling you that you need to do. You need to try some of these things, not necessarily going off grid, but try things one at a time to assert your independence. Well, we did that and everything was working great, but all of a sudden there was this burning smell, and Mrs. Finelli came into the studio and I said, "Okay, I'll be right there." And so during the break, I ran down and I looked and I saw the charge controllers were off. She said, "Yeah, the charge controllers are off." Now, what I'm saying is she figured out where the problem was on her own. Now, she didn't engineer the system, but I've been teaching her, why we're doing things, and I'm involving her in decisions. And so she said that here's what had happened. And she was absolutely right. What happened is we were generating so much electricity that we were heating up the wires, and one of the breakers flipped. It tripped, as it should, at 80 amperes of electrical current, which is kind of a lot, 80 amps DC. Well, we fixed the problem during the break, and I'm back on the air. But what I'm trying to say, and I don't know if I'm doing it well enough or not, but what I'm trying to say is one person flat out can't do it. And I'm giving you an example. We talked about the fence. One person can't monitor the fence and watch that, just one portion of the fence. It takes a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of knowledge to survive.
But
now we haven't thrown into
that knowledge. You have to reproduce that knowledge.
Right.
So if you have a nurse and you have a doctor, the doctor has to teach the nurse how to do a delivery. So if the doctor is sick or dies, there's someone that can take on those skill sets afterward too, right?
Right. And you know, the medical piece is a huge piece. And Dr. Deagle, I said on this broadcast that when one family, let's say there's a family of 3 or 4, and one person becomes ill and needs attention and can't do his job. Let's say it's a small business.
Right.
When that one person becomes ill, it's not like you're down a third. You're down like 75 or 80% because it takes the other people to pick up the load and care for the sick person. Unless you don't care for the sick person, you just hope he dies. But if you actually love that person and want to help him, it's going to take down the business by 75 or 80%. It's catastrophic. And combine that with, well, not having enough to eat, not having enough water. I mean, we just turn on the faucet right now, right? If we want water, it's right there. Of course, we want to filter it, but it's right there. It's easy. All you have to do is pay your water bill or your electric bill for your well pump, and you're good to go. But in a grid-down situation, an EMP situation, how many people are prepared to get water if the well pump quits, even with a generator, if the well pump quits?
Right.
What about that?
Right.
How many people have the spare parts, like a spare well pump, or a spare well pump controller, or spare well pump wire, 10-gauge 4-conductor that's insulated to go through water? How about that? How about getting that well pump out of the well and replacing it? How many people know how to do that? I mean, the list is, well, you know, maybe we just turned off a whole bunch of people from preparing because we're saying that's just one little problem with getting water.
You have to war game this out. You have to have multiple scenarios. You have to have not only all the people with skill sets. It's my estimation that the survival community is 50 to 100 families with everything from military to medical to welders to policemen to teachers to a pastor. You need to have the entire community that's complete and can be reteachable. So in other words, other people can pick up those skill sets even if they haven't gone to school. So eventually, if the community lasts long enough and civilization has crashed, you have to be able to train people up to become the town doctor or the town nurse or the town policeman or the town military personnel who may not have gone to the military, but they grew up as teenagers being trained by the ex-military personnel who are running the compound after the apocalypse. Because people think, well, that can't happen. Here's a fact. 90% of the population of the Western nations, we're talking about Australia, Canada, and the United States, this is classified documents I got 20 years ago, 90% would be dead just with a power outage in 6 months. Most of them would die in the first 2 months. And we'd be dealing with multiple problems. The first window is, if you get out 72 hours before the disaster, you get out. If you don't, and you hunker down, you have time windows to escape at about 2 weeks and 2 months. If you wait 6 months, the full military machine will roll into communities after whatever happens, whether it's a nuclear war or an EMP, and they'll try to pick up the pieces and the dead bodies. It will make, let's put it this way, a destruction of the structure of advanced civilization will make going back to the Stone Age like going to the Sandals Resort. Crazy, isn't it? But it's true, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, let me give you an example about preparedness. True story, of course. So I was, many years ago, I was kind of frosted about how much it cost to get a concealed weapons permit in the state of Missouri. Over $125. So I was determined I was going to fix that problem. So I offered to our class that we could do it for $65, about half price. And so we had the largest single class of concealed weapons students ever assembled in the Springfield village, Springfield, Missouri. Now, one of the things that you have to do in order to get your concealed permit is get 15 out of 20 rounds on the torso of a target at pretty close range. Okay? And so I'm thinking, this is easy. So I told the class it's not very hard. As a matter of fact, you can even have your eyes open when you shoot at the target. You know, it's that easy. 15 rounds out of 20 in a torso? Come on. Anybody can do that, right? Well, we get to the range after the 8 hours or so of classroom learning, and now we're going to qualify. You know, the last component of the testing for the concealed weapons permit. We found that some of our students could not muster the strength to squeeze the trigger on a revolver. Now, when I talk about things you don't think about, that's something you don't think about, right? How many people thought that the people that they would send out on patrol would not have the strength to squeeze the trigger on a revolver? Well, that's what happened. And it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people of the 65 who could not perform that task. So when you think about what this is going to be like, add into the mix that you're going to have to start at the very basics to train some of the people who might be with you. Either that or you don't let them be part of your village. And that would be sad. That would be sad.
Yeah, well, you're going to have a certain number of people that basically are either, if they're not disabled now, that at some future date they will be. Maybe the town doctor might get too old and he has to train other people. Or the town policeman or ex-military trains younger guys to take over his job 5 or 10 or 20 years from now. Don't expect civilization to come back quickly if a major disaster happens. And it can be something as simple as a super plague virus that wipes out 3/4 of the population. My grandmother lost a sister, and her brother wanted to hold her in the coffin. This is 1918 flu. And a week later, they buried him. If you had a super plague virus just go through, or a power outage, let's say North Korea has a satellite that crosses U.S. airspace twice a day, or they decide to have a fishing boat, Iran does, 300 miles off the coast, they can shoot up a missile 100,000 feet in the air and fire off a low-wheeled EMP weapon. And without even firing a missile over our airspace, they can knock out 1,500 radio miles of electromagnetic equipment, including step-down transformers for your power grid and your cell phone repeater towers, and everything's gone. You can't even get gasoline. The Internet's down. Everything's down. And everything's now so dependent because they've made it that way. They've made it, for example, the smart grid is actually a stupid thing if you're worried about national security. The fact that we haven't moved to a different type of power distribution system, we're dependent on equipment we now have to buy from China to even repair our power grid. It's ridiculous.
That's absolutely true. And I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think if one of our class decides to buy an off-grid system, they cannot do it without buying at least some of the parts, some of the components from China. And for example, every single one of our solar panels, every one, even though they're 3 different manufacturers, come from China.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely true.
That's all by design, by the way.
Right. And if you want to buy wire, and you look at the price of U.S. wire, and you look at the price of Chinese wire, and you get Chinese wire for about half the price of U.S. wire, how long are we going to continue to be able to make wire and sell it to people when the Chinese sell it for half the price? Now, maybe some of us, it's a real problem. And connectors, like RJ45 connectors for Ethernet. Well, heck, just about all of them come from China. Seriously. We'll come back. Dr. Deagle, will you tell us about the plague? Madagascar, it's escaping. It's escaping Madagascar. Airborne. It's a killer. Can you tell us what we should do about it and what you know about the plague?
Yeah, we have all the bioprotection things right now.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Class Dr. Bill Deagle's with us. And Dr. Deagle, let me just read a headline. Plague outbreak feared out of control as police forced to seize infected bodies. An outbreak of plague is feared to become out of control as families are refusing to hand over infectious bodies and victims are avoiding doctors. This is in Madagascar, where 143 people have died of the plague. What do we do?
Well, the first thing is, number one, you can assume that your neighbors are not going to protect themselves. Now, if you had an airborne plague, and this particular one, I've looked at the characteristic of it, and it's much more dangerous than the plague of the 14th century's Black Death. People have to understand the history of what happened there. What happened is there was a city on the Black Sea that was taken by invading armies, Muslim armies. And when they took the city, unfortunately, they actually transferred in the plague. The plague then spread very rapidly through Europe, and because of the economic conditions that had happened just before the Black Plague arrived, they didn't have the cleanliness to keep the towns and cities clean enough to prevent the spread of this pneumonic plague, which is airborne plague. Now, this particular one has a lot of characteristics that are very different. Firstly, if you have something that's very lethal, like 50% lethality, it actually usually doesn't spread fast enough because it kills off the people too quickly. This one has a lethality of about 10%, which is what we call the sweet spot for causing massive mega death. And because it's airborne and it doesn't require a large inoculum in order to get sick, it's already spread from South Africa all the way to Ethiopia. There's an island here called the Madagascar Island where they have a ceremony for the dead, which happened about a week ago. And in the ceremony for the dead, they exhume the bodies of their dead relatives and they dance with them. Now, that's not the cause of it, but the virus is present, the bacteria is present there. This airborne bacteria, by the way, is extremely deadly. And if you look at the characteristics compared to the 1400 airborne Black Death, this is far worse. So it's not just this virus. We have, for example, the Candida auris fungus infection, which started spreading last year from Japan. This is a 30% mortality rate, even in the intensive care unit. We have the H7N9 flu that's come back each year, getting more and more deadly from China. And it's only a matter of time before it mutates enough that it becomes extremely deadly. So it's only a matter of time before another airborne super plague arrives and sweeps across the world. We did a simulation back in 1997 on a weaponized form of smallpox, and we estimated that the rate of infectivity and spread in 90 days would affect 93 million Americans and spread to 90 countries. Now, here are the steps. Number one, I'm going to post up a new protocol for this so-called airborne flu, airborne Black Death plague on my website, NutriMedical. And if you have a membership, $9.95 a month, you get all the wellness conditions. But anybody can, I'll be saying this on my show, and I'll go over the specifics probably today. What people need to understand is the number one thing you need to do is start taking antipathogenics every day. Don't wait until you get a super infection. Everybody has stealth pathogens waiting in your airways, but if a super pathogen arrives, you want to kill it before it has an inoculum that can start a full disease. So everybody should be taking everyday Nutridyne because our immune systems are suppressed in the Western world because of radiotoxins from Fukushima, toxic scalar radiation from smart meters, Wi-Fi networks, and cell phones, toxic chemicals in air, food, and water, including glyphosate. So our immune systems are suppressed. So Nutridyne, and I recommend if you already have an infection, 15 to 20 drops 3 times a day in water. You may need to do inhalation. You can use our NutriSilver, which is a new technology that will actually kill off pathogens in your airway. Very safe. You can even put in your eyes or a baby's bottom. We have a NutriDefense. NutriDefense I designed years ago for super plagues. It'll block all viruses from attaching to the receptor binding domain, stop all pathogens from entering tissue planes, and boost your natural killer cells. We have NutriMune 26Y that'll make your immune system fight any of the known pathogens. So we have Nioxin 95 masks and a thing called Defense White that'll actually kill all known pathogens, bacterial and viral, including this super plague, airborne Black Death. So contact me. I'm going to post them up on my site. You'll see it up under wellness conditions, wellness protocols. And people need to be prepared today because airborne plagues, whether it's this Black Death or an avian flu coming by or some other pathogen, it's just a matter of time. It's not maybe, it's when.
Dr. Deagle, thank you so much for being with us and sharing this information with our class today.